in here. All right, there we go. Okay, we're on live, hopefully. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to our October meeting. I'm just going to go ahead and get right started. I'm going to talk a little bit about business, some events. David Akoubian is here for our presentation, our photo challenge. We had 8 images for a photo challenge. The theme is Tells a Story. Our judge is Robin Davis, who is hopefully on here tonight and is able to hear us and give her critique of the entries. So anyways, next month we'll open up for renewals for paid memberships. So watch, we'll post it on our Facebook page, and we'll also send out emails for renewals. So watch for that. Just remember the money from dues, it all goes directly to the club and pays for all of our expenses. And then, as we mentioned last month, we've got our transition team going into next year. We've got Travis Rhodes is going to be our president next year, and Danielle McCann, who I saw is online, is going to be working as secretary/treasurer. And Travis was going to talk for just a minute or two, or Dick talk for a minute or two.
Well, I need to say one thing, and that's next month will be our election of officers. So look for an email. You can vote by proxy if you wish to. Otherwise, show up and vote in person. I would much prefer that alternative. And just because I happen to be treasurer, I'll throw it in. We have $5,386.23 in the bank.
Now we'll let Travis talk.
Good evening to those that are here in person. Appreciate you being here. Good evening to those that are online. Appreciate you being here also. We're gonna probably work on sending out the survey that we usually do at the end of the year. We're gonna do that a little earlier this year. We're gonna send it out sometime between this meeting and then collect it before the next meeting, because we have a few things that we need to start talking about. One of which being where we have our meetings. There's been discussion about trying to figure out a place that is more suitable to our needs, that has better internet, because it's really hard to run an online meeting when you don't have very much online bandwidth. Is this place convenient to everybody? Do we have options that are more convenient to more people? We're gonna explore those options, but we're also gonna start setting up what the club is going to do next year, the format of it, the speakers, the topics. It takes a lot of work to get speakers for the whole year, and I want to kind of try to get a jump start on that. If anybody out there listening wants to help with that, not going to turn away help at all, ever. It's always good to have some help. It's always good to have a second set of eyes or a third set of eyes or ideas on guest speakers. Maybe you've heard of somebody that I haven't, or have talked to club members that want to hear about something else that we didn't know about. We're going to talk about field trips, potentially having some more field trips that are maybe overnight field trips that we haven't done a lot of in recent years, but we're going to talk about doing more of that. So we're going to do the survey a little early and try to have those results for the next meeting that we can talk about. Outside of that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Mike. He's still the president.
2 more months.
Not that you're counting.
No, I'm not counting at all. My wife is counting though. So we've got a busy month of field trips. So starting on Saturday, we have our train chase. I think we have about 12 people signed up for that. If you haven't signed up for it yet, it's not too late. Just fill out the form that Rick sent a couple of weeks ago. I also have it on the Facebook page. You can click on that. We're going to chase the steam train from Chattanooga to Summerville, Georgia, and back. Lots of different stops. I'm going to email an itinerary to folks tomorrow night, but I'm also going to have it print out Saturday morning because it may be kind of late when I get it printed out. Gary from Gary's Towing is gonna have a 1940 Ford coupe that he's gonna stage at a couple of the locations. Should be lots of fun. So if you're interested and you haven't signed up for it yet, go ahead and sign up for it. And then we'll let Rick talk about everything else.
Hello, everybody. So after the train chase this coming weekend, 2 weeks from Saturday will be the Fall Colors Trip, the annual Fall Color Trip. Historically, we've done a sequence of waterfalls somewhere in North Georgia. This year, we're going to do it a little different for a couple of reasons. One, we haven't really done a fall trip to Berry College before. And two, exactly a week later is the shootout, which is going to be hosted by Berry College. And so what better opportunity to kill a couple birds with one stone. So Saturday, November 2 will be a sort of preliminary run through of the shootout, little preparation. I'll come with a few random topics that will require you to sort of poke around not only Berry's property, but off property. I'll have at least one topic that requires you to go somewhere else to find it. Okay. So we'll have a little bit of practice for what the shootout is about, which is thinking a little bit outside the box on a topic. The shootout on the 9th, you're going to be getting, those of you signed up for that or do sign up for it, will be getting a lot more information very soon, including a cheat sheet with a lot of little tricks on how to do better. But it's so much fun. You can imagine a room with 200 photographers from Georgia and Tennessee and a few other places possibly, 10 different camera clubs. All of you hanging out together, talking your craft. And then at 8 o'clock, you're assigned 5 random topics that you have to go find within a few hours. Come back to the school, edit your photos, a classroom environment, turn those in, and then you get to have fun. Most of you get to have fun. Mike and Travis and I and a couple of other people will have to stick around and do a little bit of culling of the photos that were turned in. So the club can turn in a total of 50 photos. And the club will be competing against, I think, 9 other clubs this year. I think there are 10 going to be involved. So good. It's just as much fun as you can imagine. It's so much fun doing this. Please sign up for it if you haven't already. It's a hell of a challenge for a photographer, experienced or a budding photographer. And a lot of times the winners, just so you know, are not the best, most beautiful photographs. They're actually typically the most creative take on whatever that topic was. That's usually what wins the big money for this. Prizes at the individual level, prizes at the club level. So much fun. After the shootout, our last field trip of the year will be the makeup field trip for Sloss Furnace. We were supposed to do Sloss Furnace back in, I think it was January, and we canceled because it looked like all hell was going to break loose weather-wise in the Birmingham area. Unlike the rest of us, one of our members, Hylos over here, actually went to Birmingham that day and found out that it did not rain. So he already took all the good pictures, but he left like 7 or 8 for the rest of us to find. So we're going to do that November 23rd. That'll be our last field trip of the year. We'll do the Sloss Furnace trip. Right now, I've got, as Mike said, I think a dozen signed up for the trains. We have 28 people signed up for the November 2 Fall Colors preliminary, for the shootout. We have only 11 members signed up so far for the shootout itself. That'll work a lot better if we have more like 20. So we're really looking for some more people to think about that. I'll be sending more information out soon. Hopefully I can entice a few more people to join us. And then for Sloss, right now, we have a dozen signed up for that as well. And so Sloss, we can have as many as we want. They have plenty of parking there. So that's it for field trips.
And so hopefully we can get about 15 to 20 people for the shootout. That helps make sure we have enough images to turn in because we want to be able to turn in the 10 best for each category. And if we only, like our first year, we only had 5 or 6 members. We did not turn in 10 images for each category because we didn't have 10 images for each category. But we still won a couple of ribbons, and we won a couple of ribbons last year too, including one of our members got a first place in one of the categories. So it's fun, and you just never know. All right, before I can continue, the people at home, are you able to hear us?
Yes.
Somebody say yes. Or no.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Oh, and Marty Levine tells us that the coming Greek festival is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Free entry, great food, entertainment, and he's going to be there taking pictures. So there's another option for people who aren't going to go on the train chase. All right, so David Akoubian is going to be talking about the journey versus the destination. Normally I do a big introduction, but I think everybody knows who he is by now. So, and if you don't, you should. So give me a second so we can share his presentation. Share. All right, folks at home, can you see his title page?
Yes.
All right. So it's actually going good tonight. There you go, David.
All right.
I'm gonna go sit down for a little while.
So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna go ahead and apologize out front. I made the mistake of spending 8 hours outside photographing the aurora this past week. And I didn't know what was happening, so I did not prepare. So what you see me wearing is what I was wearing in 30-degree weather for 8 hours. And then it occurred to me that I could have just put my camera in interval mode and sat in my warm vehicle. So I started losing my voice this morning, of course, but I'll go ahead and we'll get through this. So I'm really happy that always to be here. But for those of you that aren't here, you really can't see. This room is full of these beautiful quilts. And knowing my sense of humor, I've been telling quilt jokes the entire time. Yes, you can say I've been keeping them in stitches the entire evening. So try to get that out of the way because Travis is looking at me and Rick's ready to kill me too. So what I want to do tonight though is I want to talk about the journey, not the destination. And I think that all of us as artists, whether we're photographers or painters, sometimes we get absorbed in where we want to be in 10 years, where we want to be in 20 years, where we want to be in 30 years. And that's not always the important thing. It's the journey along the way that really is the most important thing, or it should be to us. And I'm going to share with you somewhat of my journey and, where I planned to be years ago and where I'm at in reaching that destination, because I think I really reached what I would consider my destination a long time ago. And it's just now this is the fun part for me. Let me see which button I got to do. Yeah. And part of it is really making memories along the way. That's the key. Is I can look at any image that I've ever made and I can tell you who I was standing with. I can pretty much tell you, what the weather was like. I mean, just so much about the image, but I can't even tell you what I typically had for breakfast the day before. It's a different part of our brains that when we're out creating art, that we use. It's just totally unrelated to everyday things. And I think that all of you guys can relate to that. I do want to thank Tamron for all my presentations. They make it possible so I can do a lot of these things. I've always had a love of nature and art. And I remember the first time I picked up pencils and I started drawing, I used to draw Snoopy and Charlie Brown all the time. Snoopy in his doghouse and Charlie Brown nearby. And then I started drawing other Disney characters. And I really thought that I wanted to be an illustrator growing up. But then I realized that I was very much so a daydreamer. And if I was going through the school systems today, I would probably, be diagnosed with ADD or ADHD or something, but I just think it was just being a daydreamer. And I remember when I was in high school, my high school counselor came to me and he said, you really need to start buckling down. You cannot make a living staring out the window at the birds and the trees and everything else and taking pictures. You can't do it. And probably now it's been 7, almost 10 years ago that my counselor actually sent me a message on Facebook apologizing for the way that he counseled me, because he said, you know, you actually have done what you said you were going to do in high school. And then he asked me to mentor his granddaughter, of course, and that was okay with me as well. But I've always had that love. I grew up in Atlanta and Decatur, just outside of Decatur, actually. And so I always was involved in the gardens around our house. We had a lake down the street. I remember bringing home bugs and fish and snakes and anything else I could find. But it was just always sort of just neat to me. It was a big part of my life. And I started photographing. My dad was really concerned about me being an introvert, and he gave me a camera, a Honeywell Pentax Spotmatic camera with a 50mm lens. And I found myself enjoying creating the photography, because for me, it was going out, envisioning what I was going to do, taking clicking the shutter, and then literally creating the artwork right afterwards, going in the basement, developing it, printing it. And I found it more rewarding almost than I did sitting down and painting a mural that would take me 6 months. I just didn't have the attention span. I just couldn't do that. And back then, I mean, we didn't know about plein air art and everything else. I did what my art teacher told me to do.
Hey, David.
David,
So again,
David,
I
David,
Yes.
hang
Yes.
on. We're seeing the entire slideshow instead of the individual slides. We're seeing
let me
the
call my,
thumbnail.
I've got Mike, the IT team coming up.
And that's our weakness.
Yeah.
You have two
Yeah,
screens
fortunately,
going, or?
15 slides, so it's okay.
We need to share. Oh, no, this one.
All right, what do you see now?
Is that better?
Oh, we still see the thumb. Yes.
Oh, there you go.
All right,
Got
now
a
I'm gonna move it.
Pink,
back.
pink,
Tell me
pink
what
flower.
what do you see now?
I've always had a lot of love for nature.
All right.
All right, now we're cooking with the
I'm
oil.
glad I fixed it.
Good job, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mike looks a lot like Travis today.
So,
This is Tom.
More hair.
so I think that now that the IT team has fixed it, I think that the biggest thing that really art taught me, or painting or illustrating, was composition. And I think as photographers, we get caught up too much in the idea of exposure and the technical side of it. And we let that get in the way of our artistic side. And I really think that I've never been to an art show or a museum and looked at artwork and just stood and looked at a photograph and said, oh my God, that's exposed perfectly. Instead, I start to look at the frame and I start to study the frame, and I'm drawn into it for some reason, and I study. And, you know, in competitions, we have rules of thirds. Does anyone know what the rule of thirds is for? Travis is shaking his head. Yes.
I use it because I find that it adds more perspective on the shot. It allows, a lot of times it allows for negative space.
Right.
To be able to use it, and what it does is it offsets the image, so that it's not portrait in
Okay.
nature.
So in essence, I think, well, you couldn't probably hear what he was saying, but he says it creates some depth and perspective into the image. So what it does is there's two types of compositions. Symmetrical, which is often referred to as bullseye. Your eye is drawn to the center of the frame. It's balanced left to right, top to bottom. Then you have asymmetrical, which is purposely designed to create visual tension. It takes your eye to one part of the image, and then you have to look and search through the image to go all the way through. And I think that is what I like to do in photography, is I'm trying to create an image that's drawing someone in and they get to study it. So that has always been my goal, or my destination, is to always have a storytelling image when possible. You know, there are times that it's just simply capturing a beautiful bird. or the flowers, or a bear in your backyard, or a beautiful sunrise. Just any of these things, just capturing those memories of those moments, but doing it in a way that you're drawing someone's vision into your frame and trying to get them to feel the same emotions and the same imagery that you're feeling as you make that photograph or that image. So, but it wasn't until 1992 that I was able to actually take a journey and live my dream, or chase my dream. I got out of the Marine Corps in March of 1992, and I decided I needed to do something real in life, that I goofed off, for 30 years, and I needed to do something that was, an adult would do. So I decided I was going to be a photographer. I started photographing portraits. I started doing, babies. I did every kind of photograph you can imagine, weddings. But I really decided that if I was going to photograph weddings, I'm going to do something that's less dangerous than photograph grizzly bears. Because weddings to me just scared me. And portraits scare me because people get upset. And the last thing I want to do is I want to create an image and someone get upset with me for making it. I'm very non-confrontational, so to speak. So I think that I like to just sort of draw people in and just relax a little bit more so. So I spent a lot of time in the gardens around my house, and I always had an interest in gardening because I got my start as a photographer, as a macro photographer. I couldn't afford to travel anywhere. I was just lucky to save up money and buy a lens, buy the film that I was going to be shooting with, and then process it in the darkroom. So macro photography was always really important to me. And I have a fear of spiders, but I love to photograph spiders. And these particular images, I remember being in my front yard, photographing early in the mornings because spiders don't move as much. And the flowers tend to have dew and everything on them. And I left to go somewhere that day, and one of our neighbors came over and was talking to my wife, and they said, if you ever need help, let us know. She's thinking, wow, hey, you want to trim the bushes or cut the grass? What do you want to do? And they said, well, we saw your husband passed out in the front yard again this morning. And she just shook her head and said, he's a photographer. And they said, denying the obvious is never going to get it better. So, you have to realize that we look crazy to other people, but that's what our dream is all about. That's what we live for. But finally, in 1994, I decided I was going to give myself a gift. And I went to a workshop in the Great Smoky Mountains. And it was put on by a group called the Great American Photography Weekends. And a guy named John Shaw was the guest speaker. A guy named Bill Fortney is the one that ran the show. And they had a contest. And if you won the contest, you were going to be published in Outdoor Photographer magazine. And I was thinking to myself, this is how I'm going to get launched into stardom. I'm going to win the contest, and I'm going to be an outdoor photographer, and everything's going to be good. I'm going to be an overnight success. I didn't win. I think I came in first in the Flora category. But what did happen was Bill and John came up to me afterwards and said, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, I'm a photographer. And they said, well, we would like you to join us with our workshops. And I said, okay. And they said, well, we cannot pay you. And I said, well, you've met my current salary requirements that I'm earning now. So I think we're good there. But they said, what we will do is you can travel with our speakers for as long as you want to do it, and you can just be a sponge and learn from them. So for the next 2 to 3 years, I traveled the U.S. with John Shaw and Art Wolfe and Galen Rao and Brian Peterson and the who's who of photography. And I really think that it was an opportunity that I couldn't have paid enough money for. But the biggest thing that I learned is, for me, it was chasing a dream, but chasing dreams meant getting very little sleep. That I'm so happy if I sleep 4 or 5 hours in a night. That is a complete night's sleep to me. Typically, I'm 2 or 3 hours. When I'm doing a workshop, Travis and Rick will tell you, I'm sleeping an hour or two at best. I'm happy to sleep an hour or two. So starting out in the Great Smoky Mountains, which is what I consider my backyard, it's that closest national park to me. I really loved the mood that you could capture with flowing water, just slowing the exposure down. And a lot of people don't like this. And that's what I love about social media, is you can be in your mom's basement typing away all the nasty comments you want to type. It doesn't bother me because I just ignore it. But people will say, why don't you do something creative besides just slowing the water down? Every photographer does that. And I learned a long time ago that if you want to do this and it is your dream, you have to ignore what people tell you. You have to ignore that criticism. It's your dream. It's your pursuit of your dream. You know, you can't let people discourage you. You've always got to do what's right for you. Every time I release my shutter, it's for me, nobody else, unless I'm photographing something specific for a client. This is yours truly on the right in the yellow t-shirt in 1976 in Jackson, Wyoming. And my dad is, he's 89 years old now. And he says, why do you look so pissed off? You talked about how great this trip was. And I said, I'm 15 years old. Of course, I'm going to act like I'm pissed off. I'm with my dad in the middle of Jackson, Wyoming. I can't look happy. So, and people, you know, it really is amazing. I still listen to Rusty Draper music. If you've never heard him, go onto the internet and just Google Rusty Draper. He's got some great stuff. So John Shaw and I, when we left the Smokies, after that trip, we went to Cape May, New Jersey, and we went to Grand Teton for the workshop. And my education started. I started to see things beyond what we normally see, because often we can't translate our vision into putting it into a two-dimensional artwork or an image. And so John really taught me a lot of this, that finding a tree and using the repetition of the tree versus the mountains behind it, give it that depth that you're referring to. That's what happens in an image and gets the interest of the people and leads them through it. This particular image it took us a day and a half to do this image, mainly because we didn't know where this tree was. And all the maps that we had said it's on the Park Loop Road. So finally, after a day and a half of driving around, we went to one of the rangers and said, we've looked, we cannot find this tree. And he said, it's on the old Park Loop Road. And we said, well, how do you get to the old Park Loop Road? They said, well, they tore it up. You just have to park at this one spot. And he gave us this little marker and said, and just start walking east and you'll find the tree. And we did. So after I got done with that trip in the Tetons in 1976, I knew what my destination was going to be then, but I didn't realize it until 1994. And once I did that trip in 1994, all that I needed to do, because I knew where I wanted to be, I needed to learn how to make the best of those trips and those memories along the way. And I think that's the key that you'll find. Most people that know me know I'm a pretty upbeat person. I can get mad, but I'm pretty upbeat because I always know that I'm really just blessed to do what I do for a living and the things that I've seen. And, you know, if it were to all end today, I'd be fine with it. But I hope it continues for many, many, many more years. So I started doing workshops on my own in 1996. It says my internet connection is unstable, probably like me. But along with many friends, I saw things that I never knew existed. So it's a scary thing to do workshops with other people, but it's even more scary to do them on your own, because once you realize that is your income, it makes it really like you're standing in this big window looking into the world, not knowing what's going to be that next step. And just like any other business, you've got to have a business plan, but you've also always got to believe what you're doing is what you're going to do, or what you want to chase. I've told the story before that in 1999, I almost committed a career suicide when I told people, do not fall into this digital photography craze, for it is nothing more than a passing fancy. And I said it with a little more enthusiasm, and I didn't have a hoarse voice then. And it literally took me 3 years to recover from that statement, because I didn't understand how this little 3.5-inch floppy disk was going to replace my Fujichrome Velvia that I had used for so many years. So I didn't see it happening. But honestly, now that I've learned digital photography, I think that everything that I do is a better representation of my vision. And again, whatever your vision is for you, that's what you should be doing. Because I don't see just 5 stops of light. When I go into an area, I see 10, 15, 20 stops of light. And that's what digital photography did for me versus film. It opened up a latitude of shades that I would never have gotten through film to begin with. You know, I started seeing layers in mountains that you know, you just didn't imagine were there before. Again, slowing down the rivers and learning what filters do, polarizers, ND filters, learning sometimes the best weather to photograph is when it's raining. You know, sunny days are not good days to go out and photograph necessarily. You know, standing waist deep in water that you don't know where it came from, but just knowing that you're in the right place at that very moment. You know, my favorite place in Georgia is probably the Upper Tallulah River. And for anyone that's known me, I've been photographing that river for over 40 years. And I've gone up there and I've fished, I've camped, I've taken my brothers up, I've taken my sister up, I've taken my dad up there to fish and camp with me before. And this one spot in the river, no matter what is going on in life, I can sit at this one little spot and every memory of that river comes back to me at that very point. And that's what your photography or your artwork should do for you. Ruby Falls, just up the road, not very far. The Bass Harbor Lighthouse. I just love early morning light and late afternoon light, that sunrise, that golden light that we get at sunrise and sunset. Because to me, it's just, you know, I always sort of try to compare it to painting the Sistine Chapel. You know, they didn't go to Walmart and get cheap paint to paint the Sistine Chapel. They used the best paint they could possibly find. So when you're painting with light in your photographs or your images, use the best light possible. Use that early morning gold light, that late afternoon gold light, that sunrise, sunset light. Slow that water down, create that mood that you're looking for. You know, when you look at an image, we all look at them technically, but I think that what draws you into an image more so is the emotion that keeps you within that frame. Once you can identify with the emotion that's there. And it's so easy to do just by simply asking yourself when you're ready to release the shutter, what am I photographing? What am I doing here? And then when you release the shutter, you push the playback and you look at it and make sure it represents what you're trying to do. And it's funny because I hate computers. I just despise them. But I do just so little in Lightroom. But I know when I release the shutter, when I look at the back of the camera, I'm going to do 5 steps to that image in Lightroom. And I can look at that image and know what it's going to look like when I'm finished. That's Acadia. It's Boulder Beach and Otter Cliff. So I talked about memories of images. This particular image, we were at the Portland Head Lighthouse in Portland, Maine. And as we were there, we had set up, the light was really kind of nice for a few minutes, and then it got really dull and drab. If you look on the horizon, there's a layer of clouds that are there. The guys that I were with started packing up and heading back to the car. And they said, come on, let's go get a cup of coffee and a donut. And I was like, it's not over. I just knew it wasn't over. And as they were saying it, I turned around and this is what the sky did. I had about 30 seconds to capture this image. But the biggest memory that I had was when we did get to the donut shop, just around the corner, the Cookie Jar is the name of the place. I got to gloat a little bit because I got this image and they didn't get that image because they were ready to give up quicker than I was. And it's the same thing with your dreams. Don't give up on them. You know, ride out that bad light because the good light's going to be there. Shooting the nightscapes in Arches National Park at Balanced Rock. I tell you, I can go out there and there are times I don't even care if I capture anything. Just the simple idea that I'm witnessing this stuff in nature, in life, is amazing to me. Just, I could literally just sit there. When I was photographing the aurora the other day, you know, I just sat there and I was just amazed. And like I said, I was so absorbed in it that when all the other cars left and the light show went on, every time I would go inside my car and my app would tell me I needed to get back outside because the KP index was jumping back up and it was going crazy. You know, it never occurred to me I could put it on an interval timer. It never occurred to me that the reason I was at the space I was at was because they had seen a grizzly bear there the day before. It could have still been there, and I could have been dinner that night for the grizzly bear, but it didn't matter. I was so absorbed in what I was doing. I had the faith that it was going to turn out. We talked about Mesa Arch a little while ago. If you've ever been to Mesa Arch, you have to get there 4 or 5 hours before sunrise, because by sunrise, you will be accompanied by 200 of your closest friends, maybe 5 of which speak English. So, but it's well worth it. Well worth it. So when I was studying with Art Wolf was the one that really taught me. He has a book called Light on the Landscape. And I love that book because every image in that book is done either at the first light that strikes a mountain or a mesa, or the last light that strikes a mountain or a mesa. And the quality of that light is just so incredibly gorgeous that it's unmatched by anything. This is Dead Horse Point State Park in Utah, just outside, it's between Canyonlands and Arches National Park. But I just sat there and waited. Everybody I was with had left. I just wanted to get that last little bit of light hitting the mesa. The Hasita Head Lighthouse in the Oregon coast. I just love that little bit of light on the horizon. The shadow of the earth as the sun is rising. The Slot Canyons of Utah. If you've never been, I strongly recommend that you go, but I also recommend that you spend the extra money and get a Navajo guide to take you to either Secret Canyon or Canyon X. Because again, you could go to Antelope Canyon, the upper or the lower, but you're going to be there with hundreds of your closest friends. You're not going to have the time to really enjoy it. And I think that that's a lot of times the neat thing is sitting and just putting your camera aside for a minute, putting your paintbrush aside for a minute, and just enjoying what you're seeing. Rick was with us in Iceland this February, and we had a young lady that went with us that when she contacted me, she said, I have a camera, but I don't know how to use it, and I don't want to use it. I want to use my iPhone. That's fine. And I said, there are other groups that go over there that are probably a lot cheaper than we are. And she said, I want to go with your group because you guys are going to sit and you're going to absorb what you see. And that's what I want to do. And as a workshop leader, my first thought is, Ann, is everything okay? Or, you're not getting bored, are you? And she literally told me she was going to kick my ass if I asked her one more time if she was bored, because she was just absorbing just what we were absorbing. She absorbed in a different way. And she would just sit there and just not say a word. So you get that opportunity in Canyon X or the Secret Canyons. There's a place called the Rock Factory in Arizona. And part of my inspiration for photography when I was young was Arizona Highways magazine and a guy named David Munch. I love the light, the quality of light in Arizona. And we had a friend take us out to this place and just absolutely unbelievably gorgeous. I thought the guy was going to take us out and kill us because we drove for 45 minutes to an hour and we didn't see another person. We didn't even see a rattlesnake or a tumbleweed or anything. It was just in the middle of nowhere, but it was an incredible evening. This is Sur de Mont in Akoubian National Park. And this is one of those things that over time, excuse me, over time, creating the memories is one thing, but making them more visually pleasing is also something that you want to do. And I've always said that my goal with any image that I do is to invite someone into the frame and then visually lead them through the frame. So I'm going to invite you into the frame with this beautiful fern in the fall, but I want you to walk back to the birch trees behind it. So I purposely raised my tripod just high enough that I had some separation in the fern in the foreground with the leaves behind it. So you could walk behind the fern physically and visually. And that's something that attention to detail, when you're doing those images, it really makes a big, big difference. So keep that in mind as well. White Sands National Monument. There's not a better place in the world to go and gather your thoughts than White Sands National Monument. It may be a national park by now. It is, okay. Because you can wander out there, whether it's on purpose or by accident, because Men don't get lost, we get geographically displaced. So if you're a man and you get geographically displaced in White Sands, you could wander for days before you would find your car. So I always make sure that I'm following a good path, but you can go out and be on your own just to sit and think. So it's really a cool place to go. Gibbs Garden down there in Ball Ground. This is one of those images that people hate me for because I get to get in before everybody does, and I'm usually leaving before everybody else gets there. But it gives me the opportunity to capture that sun star and those beautiful fall colors and stuff in the Japanese gardens. So when I was a kid, I lived in Georgia the majority of my life. And I always had an interest in birding, always had an interest in a lot of things. But my exposure to wildlife was what I had seen on TV or what I had read about in books. And I remember that trip in 1976, going down the Snake River in a raft and looking up and seeing a bird. And I looked at the guide and I said, "What is that bird?" He said, "That's a bald eagle." And I said, "But they're all dead, aren't they?" And he said, "No, they're actually alive." And he told me about a book that I should get. It was a book called Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. And it's the whole book that led to the banning of DDT and some other chemicals and stuff. And I'd never imagined that they actually existed and how beautiful they could be, having never seen them in person before. But since then, I mean, I photographed bald eagles, up close. I've been within 5 feet of a wild bald eagle while it was feeding on fish. I've been within 5 or 10 feet of brown bears eating salmon. We just got back from Alaska a couple weeks ago, and just absolutely incredible to see the stuff that we saw up there. I love the images, the memories that I have of the bears coming out of the water and shaking off. I have spent so many frames on my camera photographing them, 1/4000th of a second, 30 frames a second, holding it down for 5 seconds until my buffer just has had enough. Seeing bear cubs just wrestle. I mean, we have bear cubs in our front yard, but the bears in my yard, they're typically not going to eat you. These guys could very, very easily. But just witnessing how bears have adapted to human beings for their survival is amazing to me, that the females keep the cubs of the year, especially in the woods up until about the middle of July, because it's mating season and the male bears will kill the cubs to force the female back into estrus and get her to breed again. So if you go to Alaska, don't go up there in May or June. Wait till the beginning of July at the earliest. That's when you see the cubs of the year. But the females will literally get right around you because they know the big boars stay away from humans. Even though they aren't hunted up there, they just have this respect and belief that they need to stay away from man. Probably a wise choice. But they trust you so much, that they'll stand beside you looking at a male down the beach somewhere. And then they'll nurse right in front of you. To me, that's one of the ultimate trust factors or symbols of trust in nature, is when a female bear lays down and nurses her cubs within 20 or 30 feet of you. This is one of my favorite images ever. This little cub was hungry. He was telling mom, "That's enough. Let's stop. We need to eat." And she laid down almost right exactly where the cub did this. The only bad thing about it is the tide was coming in, and we had to be able to drive out, because if we didn't make it by a certain time, we had to spend the next 6 hours waiting for the tide to go back down. Fortunately, right before it got too deep, she did get up and we were able to pull out of there pretty easy. This is my Valentine's card all the time. I have no idea what he was doing, but it's kind of neat. This is on the backside of the National Elk Refuge in Jackson. And it just looks like he's giving her a good kiss on the cheek. And that's just that, I like to humanize animals, even though I know that you're not supposed to. I like to think that they've got emotions just like we do a lot of times. Burrowing owls. If you've never seen a burrowing owl, it's the size of a Coke can. And I literally took 8 hours to make this image because we had to sit and we had to earn the owl's trust and slide up from 20 or 30 feet away to a point where we got 8 feet away, right at golden hour. And then the bird was comfortable with us being there and enjoyed the sunset, and we enjoyed the bird enjoying the sunset. But of course, my backyard with my bluebirds, that is my refuge. It's my sanctuary that I love to just get out there and just interact with the birds and watch them. I looked out there this morning when I put some mealworms and stuff out, and I had 12 bluebirds out in the backyard. So I know it was a good successful year for them. But just capturing moments that it's like these two siblings are just there waiting for dad to bring them a worm. So photography has also allowed me to visit places that I never dreamed of going and to make memories of them to share. I never imagined as a kid going outside of Georgia. Outside of Georgia to me was going down to Panama City Beach and fishing on the beach, or going to the Outer Banks and maybe doing some blues fishing with my dad. You know, that was as far as I'd ever traveled. But photography opened so many doors and so many miles in airplanes that I just never dreamed it was possible. Iceland. This is from this past February, or no, this was you didn't go to Ayerta Falls with us. This was July of 2023. Just one of the waterfalls that we hiked to. This was a panoramic. Then, of course, Diamond Beach. You know, it's a beautiful place, but it's also a very dangerous beach. One thing I love about the Icelandic people, and Rick will tell you, here in America, we put fences up to keep people out of places. We put signs, we put, you know, security guards and everything else. Iceland puts a little sign about this big. Do not go into this area. It's dangerous. If you go into that area and you get swept away, you're either going to be swept away for good, or you're going to pay lots and lots of money to get rescued. And this is one of those places, there's that little sign, so you have to really pay attention to what you're doing, or get a Viking guide named Thor that constantly yells at you to, you know, watch the waves that are coming at you. I never imagined in my lifetime ever that I would see a volcano, much less get into a helicopter and fly within a half a mile of an active volcano. I never dreamed it would be possible. Never thought about it. And Northern Lights, I never thought, again, that, I mean, these are all things that you heard about, you saw on TV. And like I said, I mean, it could end for me today and I'd be very good with it, because I've seen things that I never dreamed possible. You know, this is on the Black Sand Beach, and, you know, Rick will tell you that our Viking guide, when we say we want to go to the Black Sand Beach, he says, you're going to have to be more specific, because all the beaches are black sand in Iceland, but they have one black sand beach that's famous. And ice caves. You know, the ice cave that collapsed this past August, I sort of question, you know, the thought process of going in a place that's melting in the middle of August and not expecting it, or, you know, thinking that it's going to be some type of collapse at some point. That's why we only go in the wintertime. And now we go in a helicopter to the top of a glacier. But I love horses, and I love Icelandic horses because they're just so friendly, and the personalities are just, you know, something great to see. Puffins, you know, I tell people that if you've never seen a puffin, they're the cutest things in the world. Again, they're about the size of a Coke can, and they fly very well, but they do not land very well at all. They just sort of aim and then hit the ground. It's more of a controlled crash, if anything else. That if you see a puffin flying at you, you better move, because they're not going to be able to maneuver around you. And we had one person in our workshop that got hit by 2 different puffins that were coming in for a landing. But I never dreamed of seeing Atlantic puffins with the little eels in its mouth. Excuse me. But I never set out to take pictures. I always wanted to make images. A picture is nothing more than capturing a moment in time. Whatever your shutter speed is, 1/60th of a second, 1/125th of a second, 1 second, 10 seconds. But when you slow down and you start to do that composition, you arrange the elements. You know, when I was an illustrator, I could just put things into the frame where I wanted to put them. As a photographer, you've got to move, you've got to maneuver, you've got to select your lens, you've got to select the position you're standing to get those elements in there. But all that goes into making the memories of those moments in time. So again, stop taking pictures and start creating images. Never in a million years would I have ever dreamed of photographing an eclipse. never. But I got to do it this year. This is from just last week when I was photographing the aurora. This was 3 o'clock in the morning. Just unbelievable. Do you guys see the face in this picture? So the Vikings believe that the northern lights were reflections of the Valkyries' armor as they were going up to meet Odin, as they had been killed in battle. And when I did this image, I didn't see the face in the image at the time, but as I processed, I saw it. So I titled this image Odin. And to me, it was just Odin's face welcoming the Valkyrie up to, up to join him in Valhalla. So it's never been just about the places, but the people and things that you meet along the way. You've got a great a great painter back here in the back, Janet. You guys should definitely meet her and look at her work. And that's one of the people that I meet along the way. We met her at the ranch this year in Wyoming. And I've admired her work, and I learned from, whether it's a painter or a photographer, I learn from everybody's work that I see. And there's something about that work that I want to emulate as I'm doing whatever I'm doing. So I think that's the important thing, is you meet people for a reason in your life. Figure out what that reason is, and then, pursue it. This was at the ranch. The ranch is one of my favorite places in the world. We've been going for 15, 20 years almost now. And I consider them family, and they consider us family. And, when someone gets hurt out there or someone passes away, they'll call me and they'll tell me, because they know the friendships that we've developed out there. This was a guy named Hans. I'm convinced that Hans was the guy that they made the character, the world's most interesting man, after. This guy was a boat captain and just fascinating, but he was very stoic looking, sitting on this bench. And I wanted to take a picture of him. But again, I'm a little shy and I'm actually a little bit introverted. And I went to one of the wranglers and I said, "Do you think you'd let us take your picture?" And he says, "Well, you're going to have to ask Hans on that one." He says, "Good luck." I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if I wasn't already intimidated, I'm going to be more intimidated. So I went up and I introduced myself, said, "Hans, I'm David. I'm leading a photo workshop, and I was wondering if we could take your picture." And he sat there very stoically, and he looked up and he said, "If you must." I said, "We must." And he says, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" We said, "Just sit there just like you're sitting." And he just sat there drinking his coffee. And it's one of my favorite images of all time. This is one of the guys out there named Carson. Carson does not like to have his picture taken. But when he saw this, he was like, "If I ever have my picture taken again, you can do it." Because he really enjoyed it. And it got him, the people that we meet out there, they don't get to have their photographs made a lot. Their families think they're just out on this ranch, doing all this stuff. But when we get to take pictures of them, we send it to them and they share it with their families. And again, they become family to us. We become family to them. And that's what's important to us. This is a head wrangler named Anna. Anna and I have been friends now for 5 or 6 years. Just an absolute incredible person. If you ever get to join us on one of our ranch trips, you'll meet her, and she's just absolutely incredible. So this person, I have no idea who this person is. I've got their email address because we hiked out to this ledge in Arches National Park at 2 o'clock in the morning for a 5 o'clock sunrise. And right before the sun came up, at least 200 people stood in that very arch that we were trying to photograph. I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't be angry because they were doing what they wanted to do. But then when the light started to hit the arch behind it, everybody left except for this one girl. And she did this picture. Her fiance did a picture, and then she realized we were behind her. She started apologizing. I said, "Don't. Do me a favor. Can I do a picture of you up there? Just stand like that for about 30 seconds. So she did. Then I hollered over. She sent, she yelled out her email address to me, and I sent her the pictures. And then eventually she wanted to buy a bigger print of it. I wasn't about to sell it to her. She had done me a favor. So I sent her the large resolution file of the image. She could get a print made. We get close to the bears, but we always feel safe up there. And the people that I've met in these workshops, photographing the bears or going out and photographing northern lights or whatever we're doing, I have special connections and memories with those people. You know, Iceland, when we were there with Rick, I remember Rick was always the first one out and down along the water's edge when we're photographing in the Glacier Lagoon. Everybody's like, where's Rick? Where's Rick? And I said, I guarantee he's down there. And I'd point and there's Rick already set up taking pictures. You learn people's personalities and you appreciate them for who they are. You know, Travis is always one of these guys that, you know, you can guarantee he's not going to be the first one there, but he's going to be the last one to leave every time because he's going to make sure that he gets that image. I got to go to Alaska a year ago with my brother, and you know, it was kind of fun because my brothers and my dad had never been in any of my workshops and stuff, and it was just fun spending the time up there with him. I was convinced that I was having to watch him because I was pretty sure he was going to get eaten by a bear, but he's got the bladder the size of a pea, and we had to keep going on the shore and letting him wander out in the woods. And what's in the woods? Bears. But fortunately, they don't like to eat people. But you know, it is just nice. And probably the most important person or thing that I met in my journey so far was, I don't know if you guys, follow me on Facebook or anything else. It was my little dog. Her name was Lily. But with that, it's never let the destination get in the way of the memories of your journey. You should always be focused on what you want to, or where you want to be, but you always need to remember everything along the way. And I think that's the important part of this whole art thing that we do, whether it be photography or painting or anything else. That's the key, is to always do something like that. With that, thank you guys. Here's my contact information. And again, if you're ever going to go someplace and you want to know something about it, if you've never been, by all means, contact me. If I can help you out, I definitely will. I'm more than happy to do that. Oh, he's checking the chat room. He's whispering. Nobody's supposed to know that. He's right there. Yeah. He's a pushy president.
I didn't want you to change your glasses again.
Well, happy for the challenge.
Do you guys have any questions while we're looking at other questions?
Someone said
Yeah,
I would
let's
rather
go to your
swallow a
website so they can
spider
find
than
it.
photograph. I don't know. I'm with David. I don't like spiders.
Huh. Yeah, you guys definitely, she's a local too. You guys definitely check out her work. Were there any other questions besides nobody really wanting to swallow spiders? I am arachnophobic. When I am photographing spiders, my heart rate goes up so high because the spider is in the frame, and if it moves 2 inches, I tuck, duck, and roll. I'm just rolling in the grass because I'm convinced it's going for the jugular. Spiders just scare me to death. So yes, sir.
I scream like a little girl if they run across my leg. It's a horrible thing to hear. Hopefully I never have that experience.
I would rather run into a grizzly bear than I would a spider.
David, great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, Mike.
We will dance. Out of this screen, get back to our challenge. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. So Lisa, are you on tonight? Lisa was traveling. She wasn't sure if she'd be on tonight or if I'd have to run this. I'm not hearing her, so I think I'm going to have to run this. And Robin, are you on? Robin is our judge. Well, she emailed me, so I know she made it on at one point. I hope Robin's on because she's going to critique the images.
Is anybody there?
Let's see. Okay, she sent me an email at 8 o'clock. Hey, Mike and Lisa, I'm walking away from my computer. I guess it's too late at this point, but for any reason you want me to go over my commentaries tonight, let me know by calling my cell. Okay, well, hold on. Let me call her cell. 404. I can't remember her phone number. My memory is not that good to remember. Meetings.
Oh, there he is. 7, 8, 8, 9, 93.
See, she's like me and screens calls. Yeah, hey, Robin, it's Mike. We are ready for you. If you are able to connect, we are ready to go. Mhm. Mhm. All right. All right. All right, bye. She's logging back in. All right, so our theme this month is tells the story. I think pretty much everybody, whoops, don't look at the pictures yet. Everybody pretty much knows the rules, 1 image per person. You don't need to be present to enter, but you do have to be a paid member. Images have to be at least 2 years or less. And what we started doing this year is we had an independent judge look at the pictures, do a critique, and they're the ones who select the winners. It's blind judging, so they don't know whose images they are. So even though she has told us her top 5, she doesn't know whose images are whose. And then we award points every month. At the end of the year, the person with the most points is our photographer of the year. They win free membership for next year, $100, and a spiffy little trophy. And also something that we started doing this year is the winner of each month gets a $15 gift card. So as soon as Robin lets us know we're on, we'll show the images. While we're at it, next month's judge is Travis.
Take it over.
Next month's theme is waterfalls. Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling we'll have more than 8 images next month. Mhm. All right. I'll go ahead and show the images real quick, and then we'll go back when Robin gets on so she can critique them. So this was number 1. It's 2. And it's 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. And 8. Go back to the first one. She's calling me. I bet she can't get connected. Hello? Hey, you having trouble connecting? I am not sure. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna put you on speaker. You can say hi to everybody. All right, say hi to everybody.
Hey.
All right. Are you on our Facebook page?
No,
Okay, because the link is there.
I just kept checking email because I thought you were sending me Zoom link there.
All right, hang on, my bad.
That's okay.
I can find it. Hey, this is a new technical issue. We've never had this technical issue before.
How exciting.
All right. All right. What's your email, Robin?
Robin Davis 888 @gmail.com.
There you are. Should be coming to you. I just forwarded you our newsletter and it's in there.
Oh, good. It's checking for mail.
Any luck?
Okay, so it came through, it came to a different email address, which has a, can have a little bit of a lag time.
Okay.
But then, but it's completely blank. There's no, attachment.
Okay, hang on a second. Copy. Try just emailing you the link. I just copied it.
Great, yeah.
All
It's,
right.
Robin Davis, 3 8 @gmail.com.
Should be that.
And that one, it should come right through.
Paste. My paste would work.
And there it is. There it is.
Oh, did it come up? Because I haven't sent the email yet.
The other one came through.
Okay.
The attachment.
All right.
So.
I just sent this one. All right.
Clicking on the link to join. Opening the link.
Isn't modern technology great?
It is. Yay! I am here.
All right, let me go ahead. I'm gonna hang up because you should be coming over a speaker that we have if you're connected. Actually, I think she hung up on me. Are you there, Robin?
All right.
Make sure you,
I'm
there you go.
unmuted. I'm
All
ready
right,
to
so
go.
we're starting with image, the first image. We're just gonna go through them in the same order that Lisa sent them to you. And then after that, we'll show the winners and reveal who the winners are. So just real quick, just let everybody know a little bit about you, and then we'll go ahead and do the judging. We'll go do the critique and judging. You still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be connected with you guys. I'm so glad I'm getting a chance to talk about these photos because it brought to mind some recent topics in a talk that I've been doing about how composition adds emotion to your photography. And I think with the topic of tonight's competition of storytelling, that there is a point of emotion that connects us to a heartfelt connection to stories. So I really look forward to talking with you guys, and we can run through all the images now if you want.
All right, so let's just start with this one.
Are you going to flip through all of them, or I can just start?
Yeah, just start with this one and then we'll go to the next one and the next
Okay,
one.
okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to do the whole run through. Okay. Well, so
Number one. That's right one.
I think if
Okay,
I
this is
don't
number
know,
one.
I don't know if you guys are seeing this full
Read the
frame.
words.
Yes. One very strong point with this image is that it is a true photographic ratio. That means it is a 2:3 ratio. That is the proportion of 35 millimeter film. So images composed within that harmonic framework are naturally going to have a more harmonic feel when we view it visually. So the fact that there are two of these birds, that's what makes it interesting. It's the repetition of the two. So it becomes about a relationship where we put our own human spin on animals. So we start thinking about them as siblings and all the things that invokes. The image has no other distractions. The background dropping out with depth of field, so we don't see any distracting, harsh shapes in the background, makes it all about them and the moment where they apparently want to get fed. So I thought that this was a strongly composed image, and that added to the emotion that we're seeing here. And one thing, actually, one thing I do want to talk about for all of the images that we're talking about tonight, I will let you guys in on some things that made them a little stronger than another image, which is what bumped it up or down in the rankings. And these all have very, very strong points, but just some things that might make them a little stronger is the given area, the proportion that you're designing with. So this is a very emotional, very beautiful image. It tells a story of new beginnings. It also tells us about past generations that have come forward up into this moment. So it's very dramatic. And a very dramatic framework is a perfect square. So this is not really a photographic 2:3, or, it's a little bit closer to 4:5. But if this had been a perfect square, we would have gotten an even deeper emotional hit. What that would do is add more weight at the bottom, which gives us a feeling of security, of a foundation to the image. There's more space. The bottom fingertip is just barely touching the edge, but more weight under that would have held the whole thing up more. And visually, that would make it stronger. The subject itself is sublime. It's just that very, very simple thing of, it's not really a square, it's not really 2:3, but it's just kind of an arbitrary cropping where the subject is just in the center. A really nice design feature is this band of lace that goes up to the upper left-hand corner that anchors our eye up there so it can travel back down and then spin around and enjoy the beauty of the central image. Just the only thing I would point out is more weight at the bottom and think about it as a square. Next.
Now it doesn't want to go.
I think this definitely tells a story because I want to know her story, right? It's interesting because we have the moment where this person is in contact with themselves. Maybe they don't even know that they're being photographed. We have this feeling of them being in this personal moment. We see the duality of the back of the person, and we get to see the reflection of her face in the mirror, which makes it interesting. So she's definitely a character. There's definitely a story there. And I think it's a very interesting image. There are elements in the shot that are magical. The sky, the castle, the people, the costumes. We're taken into this idea of a fairy tale, which is a great, great form of storytelling. What I do see here that I would prefer not to be in the shot are modern elements. So we have the heater, you know, the tent sort of looks medieval, but we have other stuff. We have people in more modern clothing behind them that takes us out of the reverie. Now, I have been in this very, very moment that this photographer was in, where you have people, amazing people magically show up in costume. You have a medieval background, and then you have this incredible sky where they got the sun and the clouds, and there's so much mystery and story, and you know, it evokes all of this you know, old fairy tale kind of feeling in the background. It's just, how do we simplify it? And what you have to do is ask them to go and stand. Oh, can you stand a little bit over this way, where you could just get the wizard guy and the girl in the beautiful lavender with the flowers, just maybe grab the two of them, move them along the path, try to get down lower and get them against the castle and the sun. And then it would be truly, truly sublime. It's a very nice shot. You know, we get the feel of what's going on, but if you can direct them, and you know, they're in costume, they would probably love it if you said, hey, would you come over here and let me pose you, you know? And that's what I've done in past situations. If I see something like this, I try to simplify the scene. I want the subject. I just don't want them centered though. I want them against this, you know, very romantic background. So I think it's an opportunity, you know, when you see things like this in the future, don't be shy. You know, they're dressed up, they know they're going to be photographed, and work to make the background more simplified. Next. This is a photograph that is composed in camera, because we see the film. The photographer is saying, see this border? That's my film border. I intentionally put everything within this border that I want to be in there. I did not after crop. The edge of the film is the truth. So in storytelling, we get this honesty when we see the whole frame of the film. And if you look at famous photographers that started, you know, photography as reporting, as reportage, and if you look at Henri Cartier-Bresson, when he would send his images into Life magazine, he would put a stamp on the back and he would say, you know, this is my photo and this is my caption. Do not edit, do not crop. This is what I saw. This is how I composed what I saw. And then later they even began to print the black border of the photograph so that the publications could not aftercrop it. You know, there was this honesty in reporting and in photography where you saw the actual image. Now, the nature of this image is very powerful. It's very simple. It's very stark, like the beautiful photo with the hands with the feet of the new baby was the beginning of life and the story of that. This is also very dramatic as it speaks to the end, the ending of something that happened here, something that's marked. And we don't know what it is. It's a mystery. The tonalities of, you know, monochrome of black and white relates very well to the mournful quality of the scene and subject, and the light filtering through, softening the trees in the background makes it very, very real and emotional. And it hits home. And when we're talking about storytelling, we want that hit of emotion of, hey, something really happened here. This was dramatic. There's this finality, you know, front and center. And then it's a perfect square. And we know that we're seeing the honesty of the full frame with that film border. So that's extremely well done. Next. So our subject is very interesting. She's in a scene, she's in a setting, she's doing her craft, she's a character. We know that she's representing a historical time period that's different from our own. We're looking back into the past, and so it definitely tells a story. It fits very well with the theme. And one thing that might make it stronger, again, if there was less at the top, we had more of the full circle of the spinning wheel, and maybe she's not perfectly centered. We're looking at it like it's a portrait. You know, if it's somebody that you know and it's a portrait, they can be in the center and you're like, okay, here's this person, you know, it's a portrait. But this could be more of a environmental portrait where you see the person in their setting. So maybe you saw more of the wheel, she was off to the side, we looked to the right, we saw more of the thread and yarn and the baskets, a little bit more of the scene, I think, would romanticize the story even more. And it's wonderful. It's very well told. The choice of doing it in this warm, beautiful, rich, warm tone, black and white, is perfect for the subject. If it was in color, we would not have this feeling of nostalgia that the character is evoking. So the choice for that tonality for the subject is spot on. Very pretty, idyllic scene, a landscape, beautiful colors. I would like to see a little bit more of a story, in that there was a person, a place, that was something that was connected to it other than this very beautiful scene. I would like to have seen more clouds, less sky at the top, maybe more ground at the bottom, again, to be that anchoring base that holds the whole image up. The light is strafing in bands across the landscape, which is very beautiful. We have this golden sunlight hitting the hilltops. And, you know, I know you're at the mercy of what was going on at the moment you were there, But if the horses had been in the light, I think it would have made it a little bit more poetic. I know that's not something you can just, have happen on demand there. But it could be a personal story to you, the photographer, as viewers. I mean, think of us as your viewing audience. So we're standing there with you because you're showing us the scene that you took with your camera, right? But we don't know the details. We don't know the story. So if this was part of a memoir or a travel log or something where we had more information, if you were showing it, you could have captions or even an artist statement that let us in on more of a story relating to the image. Next.
Change again. There you go.
So when I enter into this image, when I look at a shot, I approach it. I am very aware the first time I look at it, where does my eye go? What does the person intend me to see? And there's a lot of different things going on. It's sort of a cacophony of a real life street scene. So we think it's a demonstration. We can read the words of the sign. We see the Palestinian flag, and we know the story that's unfolding there that speaks to our current history of what's actually happening, the story of all of that. So that tells us something. If we wanted it to be more emotional and more, I guess, to the point, there would be some things that we could do compositionally to make it more simplified, stronger, a more emotional story. So, people are kind of stacked over of each other. If they were spread out more, if you got down really low and you got a bunch of people against the flag where they were in unity or they were all moving. A flag is very emotional. It's an icon of a deeper thing that we all recognize. But a lot of the clutter of the background, the trees, the shrubberies, the foreground has this sort of triangle pointing up, but we don't get the completed point of the bottom of the sidewalk. So I would either want to not see that point at the bottom or see the entire curb that would again hold the whole thing up. Anyway, to complete my point, I think if it was simplified and there were people and just the flag and not a lot of the extraneous details, that it would be a more powerful message. And that's
All right. Well, thank you, Robin, and hang on, and we're going to show the winners. I know you don't know, you selected the winners, but you don't know whose pictures are whose, so.
No.
All right, so fifth place was Sandy Powell. Fourth place was Judy Northington. Third place was Mike Sussman. Second place was Richard Clark. And first place, do we get the drum roll? First place is Brian Garris. So congratulations to everybody who placed. Brian, I don't know if you're watching on Zoom tonight or not, but I'll get in touch with you to get you your gift card. I know Brian shoots a lot of film like this. It's one of the things when I met him that he told me he was concerned about joining the club because he wanted to know if other people shot film. And that is it. Watch for the Dropbox link next month to submit your image for next month. Our theme next month is going to be waterfalls. Our judge is going to be Travis Rhodes. And next month, we're going to have the election of club officers. And our presentation, I have two to be decided. I've trying to get confirmation of a speaker. He has not responded back to me yet. If I'm not able to get confirmation, then we'll do something else. We may do our editing challenge. We might do a critique, but we'll have something to fill the time if I can't get confirmation from that person. And that's it. Thanks again, Robin. Thank you, David. Thank you for everybody who came in and everybody watching at home. And we will see you next month.
Good night. Bye.
Chat. Thank yous.